Yeah, busy agenda yesterday, busy agenda today, co-hosting the session with Zelensky on the return of Ukrainian children. He's going to be meeting with a series of world leaders, including and importantly, the premier of China. Later, he'll be attending a session that'll be hosted actually by President Donald Trump. So he'll be at that along with other world leaders. Look, he fits this role of leader on the world stage like a glove. It comes easily. It comes naturally to him. He's compelling on this stage. The challenge for him is to make certain that he translates from the lofty podium of the United Nations to the street level here in Canada, what that all means. How does that advance people's standard of living? How does that advance people's economic and trade and job prospects here at home? As well as Canada's moral influence around the world when we talk about things such as standing up to Putin.
How about the recognition of a state of Palestine? And although we knew this was coming, and other allies like the French, the British, the Australians are also doing the same thing, it is a break from the U.S. and a break from Israel. Your impressions on what that's going to mean for Canada, Scott?
It's a break from the U.S., it's a break from Israel, and it's a break from Canadian tradition. The formal recognition of Palestine is a gigantic diplomatic move, particularly because Carney had indicated that it would come only if key conditions were met, including the return of the hostages. Those conditions have not been met, but the recognition has nevertheless proceeded. Look, this is going to be a large issue that will have ongoing political implications here at home. Because it will, in my view, cement the vote of the Jewish community, probably in the conservative column. Prime Minister's conscious of that fact. I think he took that decision understanding that could be one of the consequences, but there are other geopolitics involved. He clearly wants to form greater common cause with Europe and other allies who are taking this stance.
Can I ask you about Trump's comments at the United Nations, Scott? I'm sure you had an opportunity to listen to some of what he said, a lengthy speech. He covered everything from the founding of the United States in 1776 to tariffs against the Brazilians and everything in between, it seemed.
I talked with just an absolute blanket of narcissism about his own efforts at one point to seize the contract of physical reform and renovation of the UN buildings and how he was slighted in that effort. And now look at the place, such a dump as he's referring to it. It's a startling speech. The idea, I heard you and Colton talking earlier, and, of course, lots of leaders have stood on that stage and called for UN reform. Lots of leaders have said at home and abroad, the United Nations and multilateral institutions and global institutions require reform and change, and they have to be more effective. But my word, that was an unhinged, incoherent, fundamental attack on norms, on international values, on international institutions, the rule of law. It was narcissistic and self-indulgent, consistently returned the subjects back to himself, even on this topic that we started with, of the war of Russia against Ukraine. It was completely through the lens of how Donald Trump felt slighted because he felt that he had a good relationship with Putin and he had not received the favor that he expected. Nothing about the concern and the compassion he might have for all those lives lost in Ukraine, all those children who've been rooted away from their parents, can only be reflected through the lens of his own perspective. It was a startling, staggering speech. Had it been given by any other president of the United States, we would be breathless, our jaws would be on the floor, and people would be talking about whether or not the president required to be retired from his position. But this is just another day in the world of President Donald Trump.
Good to see you, my friend. Appreciate your insights. Take care.